So here I am, going to a charismatic church, and worked out of a job in sales with a Christian I worked for, stole everything I did. Then I tried working into landscaping, just doing work around the neighborhood. I'll take any odd job. I thought landscaping is safer, all kinds of predicaments. I got into repairing houses, fixing stuff inside. I didn't have that a skill set. I relied on Home Depot. So at first, landscaping, most of the jobs were outside, safer for the inexperienced. You make a mistake, when you dig a hole, you fill it up and start it over again. I did mow over a few things, yes, bushes and one time a telephone wire. No telling what was under all that high grass. Most of the time I got the jobs that were the toughest ones. Some of the jobs were sucker punches. One lawn, the grass was 5 feet tall. Mike's mower just kept on grinding through all that grass, though. He was good at trimming, so I stuck to guerrilla mowing. Trimming trees was a little trickier. Joanne had to show me, his wife had to show me how the time to do it. After you got the hang of it, it was all upper body endurance and the right tool. I got myself a fiberglass extension pole and rigged a big tooth saw blade to it. It could cut down branches and small trees with one swipe. I did a lot of damage from the ground. I wasn't too happy on the ladders. Not very happy with my balance. A little confidence led to more dangerous activity. Mike and I decided to tackle a French drainage system in Trophy Club. As a city. We had some guidance, our neighborhood. We had some guidance from the guru at Home Depot. I'd always asked him how I'd do that. See, all the while we're doing all this work, Mike and I together, which is great. He's a Christian, and he's advising me on things. And he's hearing about all my experiences with the charismatic Christian friends I used to have. French drain. I dug the ditch with my favorite tool, the blunt-edged pickaxe. Sometimes I got a little carried away with my enthusiasm. I clipped the water sprinkler system and set off a geyser. And Mike's eyes bugged out, seeing all that water in the air. And he began running around in circles. It was funny. "What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" he said. I couldn't stop laughing at his panic. I was the professional here, so to speak. I calmly walked to the valve located at the street in the front. I turned off the valve haphazardly on the left. The water stopped, and Mike admired my calm. Problem is, the next-door neighbor came out of her house yelling something nasty at me. She had soap all over her. The water department truck arrived out front. The men told me I had turned off the water for the whole block. Everyone was calling. They gave me some unpleasant instructions. Once my dignity was restored, I went to Home Depot to get further instructions and materials to fix the damaged sprinkler. I couldn't believe that the drain worked so well once we finished it. So did the sprinkler system. Next up, a higher degree of difficulty, sprinkler systems. Well, I did that, and all along we're doing all this work. Mike was astounded, but we had a lot of things to talk about, and he advised me on a lot of Bible doctrine and the church he used to go to. So we can flip on down. All these landscaping jobs, kind of humorous. I was so fortunate. I think God was with me on this whole thing. For example, on my big toe, mow and trim work became popular for us. You can only do a lot of damage with that. One job I became popular myself with the customer. Or was she nearsighted? Everywhere I went, she was 2 inches behind me. I think she either liked me or was afraid I was going to do some damage to a yard, which I think it's the latter. Mike started laughing, and I was giving him serious glares. I mean, she's right behind me. I'm liable to swing a tool or something and hit her. Whenever I turned around, the lady I bumped noses with, and Mike broke out laughing. "Ma'am," I told her, "you need to move back a little. I didn't see you there," when I bumped into her one time. She acted concerned about every leaf I cut off her tree. She distracted me so much that I jammed the stepladder right onto my big toe. I started hopping all around the yard till the pain went away. And the woman actually hopped right along behind me. Mike went hysterical. We got all the lemonade and cookies we can handle, though. So we got the job done. Perseverance is key. In any case, we kept on getting one job after another with all those flyers we put on doors. But the question is, what's a best friend for? He was my best friend there in the faith. I was part of Mike's family. We confided in one another. Mike was interested in all of my goings-on at church. We quickly figured out who the theologian was. On the other hand, my enthusiasm attracted him. He had burned out on church a few years ago. So we discussed theological stuff, and I got an education from someone who had done his homework. I realized they came up short on a lot of what Mike said, so I began to study on my own. My girlfriend gave me a genuine Schofield NIV study Bible, so I had a good resource. Ironically, that very Bible was the source of our breaking up, because a careful study of the Bible with those study helps that Mike gave me made me realize that Patty's theology was not biblical, and it created a serious rift in our relationship. Our discussions led to Mike rejuvenating his faith and becoming a teacher and a leader at Bedford Baptist Temple, which is a independent Baptist church, where he was awarded a doctorate degree. Joanne, his wife, couldn't be happier too. She was the heart of a teacher, has the heart of a teacher, so her job teaching the young children at BBT completed her soul, especially since it is in a Christian setting. On the other hand, Mike led me to a very good Bible teaching church in Irving, Texas, where I started to build my faith on the doctrines of the Bible, not on emotional preaching, imaginary miracles, speaking in tongues, and claiming things that weren't yours. So, we went on and doing these landscaping jobs. I got a Chevy Caprice and used it as a truck. Just took out the back seat and used it all the way into the trunk. We had a dump truck as well. Got a deal on that. Then we crashed I got crashed in the intersection. Somebody just banged right into my back of my Chevy, and I got a new truck. We did leaves in the fall. And all the while, I'm growing in the faith, keeping busy, making some money to eat food. Did a funny job with Jerry in a place in Texas. Nice house, but Jerry, the owner, took an instant liking to me. He was nevertheless a high-maintenance customer. He wanted us to do a great lot of work on his house while his elderly mom was still alive. He promised to let us landscape the yard after we finished the work on his house. Lots of work. So we contracted to paint the house inside and out, wallpaper the bathrooms, install new carpeting, kitchen flooring, and outdoor patio bricks. I lacked all these skills, so I farmed most of it out. It was fun being a help to other people get some extra money, especially my church or other people who were in Christ. Joanne did the wallpapering, and I became a helper whenever I was needed. I was a gopher, but we got the job done, and I was good at selling the job. But Jerry frequently shared his Catholic faith with me. He was Catholic. I responded to him with what I was learning from my study on the source of faith we both had in common, the Bible. He quickly discovered that some of his views contradicted what I could show him the Bible actually said, and this seemed to unsettle him a bit. He seemed to cool down toward me, and he began to nitpick the work being done. He took a dental mirror inside the closet to see if the top of the molding was painted inside the closet. Normally you don't paint the inside of the closet at all. I cleaned up the dining room paneling of paint spots with liquid gold, but the spots were old and not even the color we painted, from a past job and not our work. He insisted on perfect corners on the kitchen floor molding, despite imperfect walls. No plastic wood, he said. That was for amateurs. I cheated on this and painted the molding before he got home. He goes, "Perfect," he said. "You truly are a professional." I was fully convinced I was an amateur. He discovered a subtle pattern change in the patio bricks, however, in the backyard. At one time, I thought his complaints would never cease. His mom and I had many discussions, especially about the faith. I felt an affinity for her, especially since I knew that her time was short. She was getting really old. Jerry became very disturbed about my relationship with his mom and banned me from visiting the house. So I had to finish the job letting other people do the work. When the job was completed, I had some difficulty getting paid. After offering a credit for the pattern variance in the patio, Jerry put up his dental mirror and sent me a check. Needless to say, he did not call me back to do the landscaping work. Shortly thereafter, his mom passed away. I hoped to heaven's shores. I told her about Jesus, and I think she accepted it. And that's why Jerry was disturbed. And now I got an inside information on how well Mike knew his Bible. The Mormons came over to visit Mike in his house. Mike and I were approached by 2 Mormon disciples one day. I wasn't as well prepared to discuss theology with them, but Mike was. I learned something that day that is so basic, yet it's so often missed by people who profess to follow their religious precepts. If you want to find out what the Bible says, or any book says, then let the words say what they mean. These Mormons were not prepared for a simple passage that Mike so clearly repeated that was directly in contradiction to everything they held to. Yet it was right there in the Bible they professed to go alongside of their Book of Mormon. Mike said, he quoted, "For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this, not from yourselves. It is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast." Can you tell me what verse that is? Verses? Ephesians 2:8 and 9. Remarkable. Mike says, you see that you are not saved by anything you do, but by faith alone. That's what this is saying. He focused on the plain meaning of the words contained in this great passage, defining each clearly from a dictionary. Ever since then, I knew that the truth was right there, available to everyone if you simply followed the normal rules of language, context, and logic that we learned in school. What a lesson I learned. And he had confidence in his sharing his faith. And the Mormons were stunned. Mike stunned the two of them, and they never recovered from this plain and simple passage and the subsequent meanings, because they kept coming back. The key is to pay close attention to the words themselves and not override them with your own thoughts and agenda. In other words, let the words say what they mean. Mike constantly reminded our two Mormons of this principle and this very passage, they stopped coming by, for they obviously had run out of answers. So getting to the truth of the matter was not at all that difficult. You can have all kinds of arguments you've memorized, but if you can't substantiate it from the actual book that we both go by, the Mormons and us, then you don't have much of an argument thereafter. Anyway, temporary life begins at Hubble. So we ran out of capacity, and summer was hard on landscapers. We hardly had a chance to catch a breath. It was so hot. And people didn't want to do new landscaping during those hot months because the plants most likely would die, didn't get a chance to grow roots and survive. Well, now at this time, a large part of America's workforce is now temporary. Is it a 21st century phenomena or the same old thing under another name? The concept of a company drawing on a pool of workers trained in various office tasks as it needed them sounds like a brilliant solution to age-old problems in the workplace. Should save money to boot, no benefits to pay out. And I was the brunt of it because I was the worker. Well, I went through Hubble lighting as a temp, driving a forklift. That's actually an elevating forklift. It goes up, you pick an order from the shelf that's high in the warehouse, and up to the ceiling, 20-some-odd feet, and down, and we up and down the shelving units, up and down aisles. But I found myself standing on a high-rise forklift, is what it's called, shoulder to shoulder, with a tobacco-chewing order-picking man. That's my trainer. I didn't think I'd last a day with the roller coaster ride, trying not to fall out or throw up. Well, you have to get used to that. And that styrofoam cup Kevin spat tobacco juice in was right under my nose. Oh, I was sick to my stomach. Hard to believe someone would take all that raw tobacco and roll it up with bubble gum in a huge wad and shove it into his mouth. Every morning, first thing. I didn't fall off the truck. I didn't throw up, and I got my license. So I was pulling orders by myself in no time, and I didn't have to chew tobacco. So when Norrell found out I was driving a forklift, that's the temp agency I work for, they told me they already had qualified drivers. They tried to remove me from the assignment, but it was too late. I'd already received my forklift license and was on my way down the aisles as a full-fledged, high-rise order-picking man. I just didn't want to chew the tobacco bubblegum combination. So they gave me a 75-cent raise instead of letting me go. That's what you have to do in the temple life. You keep working. God doesn't let you have a roller coaster ride through the temple just so you share your faith with others. You still have to do the job. And a lot of people, new guy on the block, set traps for me. A lot of funny things. Like one time they said, use truck number 2 to order pick on a narrow aisle. And I backed into, that was a big truck, I backed into a column. And the column had a fire extinguisher on it, and it knocked that fire extinguisher off, and it slid across, blowing up, the stuff, the fire stuff coming out of the thing, and it slammed into the latrine door, the bathroom door, And it was the